Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to now call to order our special meeting of the Fairfax Town Council. And the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, and we have just one item on the evening's agenda tonight, and that's regarding adopting a resolution approving a final parcel map subject to conditions for Victory Village at 2626 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. And
excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just a point of order. Do you want to do a roll call and approve the agenda and affidavit of posting first?
yes, you're right. We need to do that first. Sorry. So roll call.
This is tricky. Vice Mayor Kohler is absent. Councilmember Goddard.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
I'm here.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Here.
And Mayor Lax.
Here.
Thank you.
So maybe, Mr. Mayor, just as one clarification, Vice Mayor Kohler isn't here because she had to recuse herself because of potential project conflict.
Understood, yes. She lives.
Yeah, she just lives within a certain distance.
Okay, then with that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. No changes to the agenda. Ben, would you like to give us a staff report?
Yes, thank you. Mayor and council members, some brief background on this project. The town council approved several applications pursuant to this project, including general plan amendment, tentative map, density bonus, design review permit, traffic permit, excavation permit, and a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring program pursuant to CEQA for this project on May 3rd, 2017. This project involves a 54-unit affordable senior housing development. RCD, Resources for Community Development, the project applicant, successfully secured the tax increment financing earlier this year, which started a very short time frame for finalizing the parcel map, which you have before you, and in addition, getting construction permits underway by December of this year. And since that time, a variety of agencies have been working intensively on a collaborative process to address the numerous conditions of project approval. And I would like to call out Coastland Civil Engineers in particular, acting as the town engineer in this. Their experience and skills in reviewing the subdivision applications and the improvement in building plans have been really critical. And also the entire applicant team, RCD, Mosaic, Carlisle Macy, and Van Meter, Williams, and Pollock, all very professional, just great to work with and super important to getting to this stage. The parcel map you have before you is the final version of the tentative map that you approved in 2017. It achieves the division of one 20-acre parcel into two 9-acre parcels and one 2-acre parcel. The 2-acre parcel is the site of the 54-unit development, and the two 9-acre parcels potentially will be developed with one single-family residence each on them at this time. The town is not processing applications for those 9-acre parcels. The tentative map essentially fills out details of what the town council approved last May. The basic or the biggest change is the creation of open space easements, and you can see that on one of your plan sheets right there. With your excuse me, resolution, the town council would accept the emergency vehicle access easement, the open space easement, the public access easement, the pedestrian access easement, and the public utility easement. The town council is not at this time accepting the applicant's irrevocable offer of dedication of a right-of-way easement. The town does retain the ability to accept that in the future if the 2 9-acre parcels do pass into public land and access is deemed important through the access road. The town council action their approval is subject to approval of the subdivision improvement agreement. This deals with the future public improvements and ensuring that those are duly completed. We are awaiting the bonding instruments that would enable us to finalize that, but both the town engineer and the town attorney have been working with staff and the applicant on finalizing that, and those are very minor details to be filled out. The acting town engineer and survey have stated that this project is ready for their signature once the subdivision improvement agreement has been executed. The applicant's signatures have been provided on a version. So in terms of compliance with the town's requirements, they have substantively achieved that in what we're presenting to your council. You have a paper copy of that final parcel map before you. With your action, you would be approving a resolution that approves the parcel map and authorizing the town manager to approve the conditions, covenants, and restrictions that relate to maintenance of certain improvements. And with that, staff is prepared to answer any questions you may have.
So maybe I could add something to what Ben was talking about is, you may recall back in May, we always envisioned there'd be 3 parcels, right? 2 9-acre, 1 2-acre parcel. However, at that time, it was talked about if a grant or some funding could be acquired by RCD, that they would be willing to dedicate those 2 9-acre parcels to the town. However, since that time, due to project costs and other things and securing financing, that's not able to be done at this time. However, it is important to note, and I think Ben might have touched on this, is that there is a public access easement over the 3 parcels. 20-foot access leading up to the top of the ridge line, about 150 feet. Over the 3 parcels, that totals about 4.8 acres. So I just thought it'd be important just to remind the community and the council that was a discussion at the time, if possible, but it was always envisioned we would have 3 parcels. It was just that if they could, they would donate the 2 9-acre parcels from the project if that was financially feasible.
Okay, questions? Sure.
So, Ben, could you just give a little more clarification on the town will not be accepting the irrevocable offer of dedication for the right-of-way easement for the on-site road at this time? Could you just give a little bit more explanation of that and why that's the case?
Yes. Typically, a town accepts an offer of dedication if they intend to take over the ongoing maintenance of that as a public road. And because at this point, we do not have the certainty that the 2 9-acre parcels, which this what's now a private road terminates at, the decision is that there's no reason for the town to accept that. But if that situation, the offer is there, it's irrevocable. So with this approval, that offer will continue to remain. And if at the future the town decides in its sole discretion to accept that, it can do so at any point.
The 2 remaining parcels, what's the zoning on those? And that remains unchanged, correct?
Yeah, they are UR7, which means 1 unit for every 7 acres. They're 9 acres, so it'd be 1 unit that would be allowed.
Right, so that would be the maximum number of houses on there. And then where does a public open space easement run on these? Maybe you could describe that for the benefit of people that might be watching or may not have the benefit of having an actual map in front of them.
Yes, the 20-foot wide easement extends from the property's frontage on Sir Francis Drake along the southerly property line and it goes up several hundred feet to where it intersects with the applicant's proposed 150-foot wide open space easement. So basically, we're taking, and this would be subject to future improvement, of course, taking the public from the edge of the public Sir Francis Drake up to the top of the property and across.
Okay, and then at the top of that property, does that connect with any other open space or any other public streets?
At this time, there isn't publicly dedicated open space. However, this abuts the Layton Hills property and also the Canyon Village property, both of which are in open space at the top of that ridge line. So the potential is certainly there in the future for developing that public access and that public resource.
Okay, thank you. And then at this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment. And so, folks, if you want to comment on the project, come forward. And if you're comfortable, please state your name and where you live. And we'll limit comments to 3 minutes per our usual protocol. And Frank, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Frank Eager, 13 Meadowway. I'm going to ask each of you this evening if you have ever met with the developer, Resources for Community Development, or any of their representatives at all during this process.
Aside from in this room, you mean? As part of a public meeting, I mean, they've been here, but that's, I've never met outside of this room.
Okay, so thank you, John.
I never have. Again, outside of just meeting in the room during a public meeting.
Okay.
I've certainly had conversations in the room. I've never set up or sat in a meeting with RCD.
And that would be the same with me. I've met them in this room and have seen them outside of this room, but haven't really talked about the project in any way.
Thank you. Fairfax did not require an environmental impact report for Victory Village. 18 acres was promised to be donated by the Marine Community Foundation for open space at the final meeting when you acted. The opposition backed off that night, some believing it was a fair trade. Now the 18 acres is being sold for development. Polite terms, it was a bait and switch. Truth is, the people of Fairfax were lied to. Then the 2017 wildland fires in Sonoma County happened. 24 died, 5,000 homes burned, including senior projects. The Victory Village property is in the wildland urban interface fire zone. There is no approved evacuation plan. It was not included in any of your documents. A few months ago, Fairfax public safety officials ordered an evacuation 300 feet west of Victory Village. That was for the condo fires that burned 3 condos at Village West. So the question I have is, how will Resources for Community Development evacuate the 54 senior units during the next fire threat? The land division is illegal under Fairfax code. No matter what your town attorney or your town planning director or your town manager tells you, I know the code because I helped write the code. Section 16.24.030, lot requirements. It requires 65 feet of frontage on a public street, not a public easement. If, in fact, this is a private road, we have a private road ordinance that requires a minimum of 20-foot wide roadway. It requires all street improvements, including street lights, sewer, water, etc. None of that is before you. I urge you to reject this subdivision application this evening until such time as you have all of these questions answered. This project should not go forward as it is currently proposed with the illegal subdivision. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Richard Applebaum, 61 Woodland. I just wanted to go on the record as saying that one voice, one citizen. I'm opposed to the approval of this new map with the new subdivision parcels. It does feel like a bit of a bait and switch, and I'm just concerned. I don't see where the benefit to the town of Fairfax is that RCD gets to either sell off to 9-acre parcels to whoever else to develop or develop themselves, and I really don't get it, and I don't see where the win is for us, so just, I oppose it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm Patty Brightman, 12 Raleigh Court. I live in Canyon Village, adjacent to the Victory Village. The benefit to the town is that we're doing the right thing for seniors. This is not comparable. Victory Village is not a retirement home. It's not a nursing home. It's just like all the other houses in Fairfax where people over 55 live. So virtually anyone living in Fairfax is at the same risk as the people living there because we are an aging community. We've already answered all of those concerns over years of meetings, and RCD has done everything they were asked to do. The town has made the choices I think are the right choices. And I'm just here tonight to say the benefit to the town is that we're providing housing for vulnerable seniors, low-income seniors, and it's the right thing to do because most of us are aging. I don't know anyone who isn't. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jane Richardson Mack, 49 Madrone Road, Fairfax. I have to say I'm sorry, but I oppose it. I'm all for senior housing, but when this first started out, I think the good people at the church were asking what Fairfax most wanted, and Fairfax wanted Fairfax senior housing. I don't think this fits that bill. It's really big. First of all, it's out of scale with the rest of our town. Now, I don't understand how nonprofit pays $1 million and then somehow makes $2 million on part of the property that they just bought. That sounds like profit to me somewhere. And probably the whole thing is because it's so big, it's going to cost so much money to build such a big thing. Bennett House is a smaller thing, much more in scale to Fairfax. So I don't like to see Fairfax bending over and changing rules, disregarding laws that we've had in place through our general plan and making concessions to RCD. None of this is local. I mean, the good church people meant well and wanted to do something good, but my understanding is that Fairfax residents aren't going to fit the correct demographic to live there, or there'd be very few of us who could live there. They'll be coming from other places, Berkeley, etc. Seniors everywhere need housing, but the old saying is charity begins at home. It makes more sense environmentally speaking. If Fairfax seniors get to stay in Fairfax, they know their community, they can walk to stores, their relatives live here. We won't have people driving here to see their people and back. There's too many concessions. I just think it was too big and a wrong fit. And so I urge you to reconsider, don't rush into anything. I know it's taken a long time. It's an important thing. It'll never go back once it's done. The wild area there will no longer be wild. It will change the wildlife. It'll change the birds. It'll change the air. It'll change our water, our traffic. Massive changes will take place, and it all depends on you. So please take your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Liesl Blasch. I live at 22 Pacheco Avenue. I just wanted a correction here. I think actually Bennett House has more units than Victory Village will have by quite a large number. So it's not a larger project. I'm also going to mention that this has been a very long public process. I think this is now at least the 15th public meeting that I have gone to on this, including some around the county. It's been a really long time since the Fairfax Lutheran Church first envisioned this project, which will be developed on the footprint of their building. Unfortunately, the robust public process, which was great in a lot of ways, and subsequent delays in project approval have resulted in a huge cost increase and a multi-million-dollar funding gap that has threatened the viability of the project. The changes in the tax law that resulted from the elections, the changes that made the tax credits on which this project relies worth much less, the changes in the way those tax credits were allocated, the tariffs, all of these things have raised the cost of construction astronomically and decreased the amount of funding available. And then, of course, we had the North Bay fires, which added much more difficulty in terms of getting contractors and also in the cost of construction materials. I also want to note that there have been numerous changes to fire safety requirements and other infrastructure that introduced new and unanticipated costs. So the county has given this project a short-term loan of $1 million to cover part of the gap, which must be paid back within 1 year. Resources for Community Development thought they could offer the back 2 parcels to the town for open space. Unfortunately, in order to pay back the county, they really need to sell those 2 lots to cover that funding gap. So I and others have explored all kinds of ways to see if there's any way to preserve those 2 lots and buy them for open space. We've talked to the county open space administrators, we've talked to the town, we've talked to other people, and everyone's strapped for cash right now, and I think people have noted that they are not of extreme significance in terms of recreational value or historic value, even though we treasure them greatly. And we also had the opportunity several years back for the Open Space Committee was offered those parcels for a total of $300,000. We didn't have the money at the time, but I think, there could have been an effort to have purchased them, although I'm sure the Open Space Committee kind of pulled back a little when they thought the properties were going to be donated. But I just want to mention that we're really sad about the fact that those parcels might be sold for something other than open space, but we really don't want to have the perfect be the enemy of the good here. We still think this project is extremely valuable. And I just also want to mention that the funding gap faced by Victory Village is really sort of the wages of delay. We've been asked to slow this process down over and over again, and that process is somewhat responsible now for the loss of the open space that we all claim to cherish so much. So I'm happy to see that the town has negotiated some sizable open space easements through this process. And I do think it is a public good to provide housing for low-income seniors, whether they come from our community or beyond. And I assume that a number of them will come from our community and a number of them will come from beyond. And I think that's really, really important for us as human beings in this time when public funding is drying up and the safety net is going away, to really be that heart and soul that provides that kind of public good that this project will provide. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ellie Block, and I'm from the Marin County Commission on Aging, and I happen to live in Tiburon. I want to ditto what she said, and I came from a meeting this afternoon at the College of Marin, and housing is a problem throughout the state, and I commend you for what you've been doing here. We have to just do more. We have to work with each other to get more housing built throughout California. Thank you for what you're doing here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Wendy, and I live in Fairfax, and I don't know where the meeting's at because I just walked in the door from my hospice volunteer shift with an elder in our community in Marin, and mostly what I support this the project. Of course, I would rather see some open space, but I don't want to see us take away this opportunity for seniors, for low-income housing for anybody. I don't care where they come from. And I've been really quite embarrassed by being a Fairfax resident and seeing some of the, to me, vitriol waged against anybody who's low-income and seniors when it comes to housing, when we all know that there isn't enough housing for low-income people. So it feels like a lot of NIMBYism going on to me. I don't think it's fair to blame this project on worsening traffic and worsening fire issues. It seems like, it feels like, as a low-income person who's not yet a senior, but who would like to stay in this community, it just feels like more being pushed out of Marin. And I it pains me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Diana Purdue, 199 Scenic Road. And I just have to say that I've never been a fan or a supporter of Victory Village. And that's not to say that I don't think that that parcel of land could have been used for low income or middle income, or my choice, if I had a choice, would be mixed ages. I had two parents who had to leave their house they'd lived in for 50 years and go to places where there were only seniors, and they both felt that that was the most tragic thing that ever happened to them. And I think that for RCD to come to this town with a project and a specific piece of land that did not fit in any way, shape, or form what they presented to us was disrespectful of them to the people of Fairfax. The place was already zoned RU7, and I think that they should have chosen a different place, or we should have chosen a different kind of project. I always thought that Fairfax and the way we present ourselves, although in this project, the presentation of Fairfax and how we live and how things are here has, RCD doesn't fit at all. They're a shill for a mutual fund, and I find that reprehensible. We could have partnered easily with, the most kind human in the world, Jimmy Carter, and had a variety of houses built for a variety of people on that piece of property. And if you wanted to rezone, then there wouldn't have been just 3 houses. There could have been a real true community that could have been built there. And I am, from the beginning when RCD would say, well, we're so broke here, can you forgive us our building permit fees? And could you please rezone this because what we've brought to you doesn't fit the piece of property that we have? And all those things were just wrong. You shouldn't have rezoned. You shouldn't have rezoned at all and crammed all those people, which could be, 45 or 54 units, which could have 1 person or 2 or a caregiver or someone's child who says they're a caregiver. You could have 150 people living there. And it would be legal because that's the way it's set up. Can Fairfax afford that? Can we afford to give Section 8, the county and the state and Fairfax afford to give Section 8 coupons to 50 people? Then these people aren't paying any kind of city tax. We have an aging population there. You have the fire department, the police department, ambulance. Is everybody also going to get on Section 8? Is everyone going to have food stamps? Can we afford to do this?
So, Diane, do you want to wrap up?
Anyway, those are just some comments that I wanted to make, and I don't know, did we forgive them their building permits? I don't think you should. I don't think that this project is the project today is what you approved before, because those 18 acres were the hook that got this more support than perhaps it would have had without the 18 acres being open space. And
Okay.
for that to be for sale now is really tragic. And I don't think that you should approve this at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Bell, Domingo Avenue. When this started out, it seemed like a pretty good idea, 40 units on 2 acres, 18 acres of open space. somehow the 40 units became 54 units. Okay, well, you still have 18 acres of open space. Oh, not anymore. I think most people in the community are expecting 18 acres of open space to come out of this. And I don't find having a special meeting at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday on short notice is particularly representative of having a transparent local government. I think a lot of people have no idea that these changes have occurred and they should be consulted. Maybe it could have been 3 acres of project and 17 acres of open space. I would have given them more money. There are other ways to go about it. And once you run utilities up there for those 2 9-acre houses, you're just inviting development along the ridgeline. And since having experienced your disdain for codes, I imagine we'll be seeing houses all along the ridgeline in the ridgeline corridor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Come forward. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Schnur with Mosaic Urban Development. We're RCD's project management consultant. I just wanted, first of all, to thank town staff for the many years of your engagement with this project, and to the members of the town council. This has come before the council many times. You know, tonight's action to approve in final form the map that was brought to you in tentative form a year and a half ago will complete that process. I want to thank the project supporters who came up, but also even the project opponents, because I know that you're motivated by wanting to make sure that this town remains the town that you love and we want to be a part of. A number of people have commented on the plan to sell the back 2 parcels rather than dedicating to the town as public open space. I appreciate Liesel's comments and putting them into the context of changes that none of us could have predicted over the years of tariffs being imposed that raised the price of importing wood, on massive wildfires in the North Bay that raised the price of contractors, of an election of a president who undermined one of the key financing tools. But I also want to specifically thank the town's planning and building director for the excellent suggestion that by adding the dedication of the easement connecting to Sir Francis Drake, that the open space for 150 feet below the ridgeline at the back of the parcel will have public access available, and to the extent that the town or other funding sources can come forward in the future to create trails, that it holds the prospect of a future where there can be connected trail system to legalize the informal and not legally permitted access that's already taking place on that. This creates a legal framework for doing so. So again, I want to thank the council, and we're available for questions, myself and Jake Rosen from RCD, if you have any.
Sure.
Thank you.
What were some of the factors that went into the increase in prices, and why you feel that you need to sell the parcels rather than dedicate them, or did you have some kind of a grant or something lined up possibly to compensate for just selling them as open space?
The loan that's been mentioned before was a loan that we've secured from the county just in the past several months as a short-term loan to sort of to bridge the gap of what we expect the parcels would sell for. So the county came in with additional money. We went back to the county, we went back to the Marin Community Foundation, we went back to Tampa Civic, we went back to every funder and said, costs have gone up in the construction world, the biggest piece of money we're getting, the tax credit, has gone down. How can we save this project? And one of the ways that we are doing so is by taking the money that we expect to get for selling those parcels and pumping it directly into building this project, into filling the gap in the project financing that came from all of these other changes that happened.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Fred?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And would anyone else like to speak on this? Okay, it looks like no one else cares to speak, so we'll close off public comment and bring it back for discussion among our council members. And yeah, a lot of interesting developments in the path to this project. And who would like to start?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like at least at first to speak in particular to the easement that's, you know, been referred to here by different people. I walked that a couple days ago, and you know, and then consulted on topo maps and stuff like that just to make sure that, you know, it was pretty clear where it was. And there is an existing trail that pretty much follows this right now. There's not a lot of survey markers up there, but the trail pretty much follows exactly what this easement here is, and runs up this, you know, I mean, I guess the public doesn't have a copy of this map right here, but basically it runs up the ridgeland on the right-hand side, and then it cuts across the slope up towards the top of the ridgeline. At that point, it's 150 feet wide, and in looking at aerial photographs and the topo maps, it appears pretty much that the existing trail there is on this easement. At the top of the ridgeline, I guess there's some question as exactly where the property lines are, but there's a fire road that follows along that ridgeline, and that existing trail goes up to that fire road. And that fire road runs all the way up to the top of the ridge where that labyrinth thing, the flat area, which I believe is part of Canyon Village's property, but maintained by Marin County Open Space. So I, you know, as a way to compromise and try to figure out a way forward, I think that the combination, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that these lots, you know, are now, you know, I think if there were dedicated to open space, you'd see the trail about where the trail is right now, because below that it's really steep. And I mean, it's pretty steep up there, but the trail manages to cut across, and it uses the topography pretty well. I don't think that you could get from the bottom of that hill up to the top any more easily than what the existing trail that follows pretty much on these easements is. I mean, it's probably the best way up there anyway. I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, that the funding, because of the funding problems coming up, that these two lots have to be sold, but as a way forward out of a tight spot, it may well be one of our best solutions. So I just wanted to speak to that trail and the easement going around up there, and saying that seems like a workable solution. So I applaud that solution that came up from our planning director. So that's all for now. I mean, more things I could comment on later.
Okay, thank you, John. And by the way, if you want to see the actual parcel map, it is available on the town website with a link for this meeting. Is that correct?
It's also here.
Right.
But also, there's a copy at the back of the room.
But for people watching at home, and just the general public. Okay, Renee, do you want to go next? Or
Yeah, so what's at hand right now is to approve this final parcel map. It has no major substantive differences from the earlier approved parcel map, except for what some are calling a bait and switch, and I personally disagree with that. There was never a promise made. There was never a lie told. There was a desire and a very thorough pursuit for funding that would allow for those parcels to be donated to the town for open space. That did not happen. These people have worked more diligently, gathered more respectfully and with more diligence and determination than any group I have ever seen pursue a project that has to do with allowing folks to age with dignity and joy in this community. We hope that we will be able to house people who live here. But if you want to talk about the character of Fairfax, you can't talk about that character without talking about that we value equity, that we value compassion, inclusivity, that we look beyond our borders. All of us would say that. We would teach our children that that is what makes a strong character. And we wouldn't even dream of saying no to 53 units for low-income seniors to live in this community that we love so dearly. So not to bring this into this emotional realm to such an extent as I am right now, but I have watched this process. As Liesl said, there have been upward of 15 different meetings that have been conducted where people have been heard. All angles have been explored, concessions have been made, changes have been carefully considered, and planning has been rejiggered and reimagined. And I think we've come up with a project and a map that is ready to break ground. And I listen and I hear people's fears, and I hear that people have opposition to some pieces and parts of this, but I see this opportunity as once in a lifetime. I honor and am so grateful to really the women of the Christ Lutheran Church that persevered through this. And I thank you for that. And I will just state right now that I say yay.
Okay, thank you, Renee. Bruce?
Well, that was well stated, and I'll state right at the outset that I feel like there's no question we need to keep this on track, and I look forward to it happening in Fairfax. I think it will be good for the town. Change is difficult, but people who weren't here forever are now part of the community. These people who come, if they aren't from Fairfax, will be part of this community. And many people historically that in developments like this, many people are from the community because people prefer, especially seniors, to not move a long distance. And so that's most likely what would happen anyway. But there's a cost to us delaying, and probably the biggest cost overall to this project that's been unforeseen has been as a consequence of the long period of us sorting this through as a town. And I felt eventually came to a pretty strong consensus in the town that this was the right thing to do. And not ready to turn that around now, but that had its cost. And part of that cost was somewhat unforeseen in that we had, as was spoken about, we had the fires, we had the Trump administration coming in, and so a lot of costs went up and a lot of funding sources went down that a year earlier that wouldn't have happened. But unfortunately it has. I do not see the change of plans for the upper two lots as being a bait and switch, and I have walked those lots, and there's very little flat space on them. They're not going to be likely to be built with a very large development, and it would be one house maximum each one. They've been sitting there for years and haven't been developed as yet, so. I think we should proceed forward with this, and my vote would be yes.
Okay, thank you. You know, I was really disappointed. I was thrilled when the possibility of this open space dedication came up really in the last few weeks. It was like, oh, this gift, that's fantastic, that's great. I was ready to vote for the project irrespective of that. That was, you know, icing on the cake. It's disappointing to lose that, definitely. That area could be a nice, you know, be nice to use the amenities that are there and preserve them for public use. Most of those parcels, though, do go straight up, and I tried hiking up there, and it's pretty physically impassable. You know, unless you want to scramble through the brush and get poison oak, and you know, it's beyond what I would care to hike. The easement does recognize kind of the sort of path that's developed over the years, so it's a thoughtful incorporation of the features of the existing trail that's there. Excuse me. I certainly don't want to unwind this whole project just because the parcels can't be donated to open space. Again, I would have approved this without that open space possibility. I think we do have a moral imperative to create affordable housing for seniors. I'm willing to bend the rules a little bit for, and the rules weren't bent that much for this project because it will address such a dying need. Because we do have so many aging seniors, and we all need to do our part to create affordable senior housing, nonprofit senior housing in this, you know, hyper-capitalistic real estate market where rents and real estate values are going through the roof. I wanted to address a couple of comments. We can't prescribe that only Fairfax residents get to live there, but the practice over many years of these projects is that they tend to be filled with people that live in the vicinity. So very likely we would have mostly people from Marin and a pretty good chance that there'd be people from Fairfax. Can't guarantee it, but that's usually how these things work. You know, the fact that they're using Section 8 certificates in a creative way to fund things, I think that's great. I don't think we should be excluding people just because this is using Section 8 money. And in fact, we passed an ordinance that prohibits discrimination based on Section 8 vouchers for tenants. So I think we do need to recognize the need to find creative ways to provide senior housing, affordable housing. As to Mark's comments, this would not lead to any development on the Ridgeway. That's just an impossible site to build on. Anything, if there would be any houses built, it'd be built at the bottom. And so I'm not concerned with that. And I think the points that Liesl made and Tom made are very legitimate. Prices went up a lot in the last couple years during this process, and the last year when we approved this. And you know, I'm glad to see that they're able to have this project go forward. And let me put something else out there. If this project were stopped, the church would probably be forced to sell to a for-profit developer. And under this new barrage of Sacramento imposed housing laws, which are funded by the development industry, our hands would be a lot more tied in terms of restricting the types of things that we could prevent on this property. So for those that say stop the project, you know, throw it in the garbage, start over, be careful what you ask for. I think we might end up in this new post, you know, SB 828 environment with something that is a lot less palatable in the long run. So for all these reasons, I think we should approve this this map, they can go forward. It's sad we're losing the open space, but for all these reasons, it's the right thing to do, and I would have approved it without the open space in the first place. So I share the view of my colleagues on that. So if there's no further discussion?
Actually, I had one question for our planning director.
Sure.
There was a reference made to 16.24.030, which is the 60-foot frontage on a public right-of-way. Isn't this what's the term, non-revocable offer of the dedication of that right-of-way? Is that like a placeholder that can really function as that 60 feet of public right-of-way?
It meets the satisfaction of the town engineer in that regard. So if you look at the two parcels, they do have that frontage on this roadway.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it is we believe it satisfies all the requirements in the code.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions, discussion?
I would love to make a motion.
Okay.
So I move we adopt a resolution approving the final parcel map subject to conditions for Victory Village, and authorize the town manager to approve the covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC&Rs, for the project per the conditions of approval.
I would be honored to second that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed, and the motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting.